Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Zach. I'm a senior at Colorado State University. I study health and exercise science, and I've had the privilege this semester to be a part of a practicum class with Canvas under Ashley Navarez, her supervision, working in health and wellness. And so today I'm going to be talking about why exercise is one of the most beneficial habits that you can add to your weekly routine. And when I say exercise, I'm really talking about weightlifting. Lifting weights can and should be a simple, approachable strength training, um, or way to strength train that just about anyone can do. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or train for hours a day to get meaningful results and see those benefits. Um, myself, I've trained for the last, well, 5 plus almost 10 years. And at first I did it for the big muscles, but it's evolved from that. I'm past that now. So even, something as easy as two short sessions a week could be really can make a big difference in how you feel, how you function, and even how you age actually. So let's start getting into that. So, weightlifting, it matters. It matters a lot. It supports both your physical and mental well-being. It helps people feel stronger and more capable. It can improve your posture, which is something that I'm actually working on right now. And it makes daily tasks easier. Um, this also can boost your confidence. And this plays a major role in long-term health and independence as we age, as you age. When I started high school about 8 years ago, I wasn't happy with how I looked physically. I always played sports, but I didn't really take exercise all too seriously, beside the sport that I was playing at the time, and or my eating habits seriously either. I didn't take that very seriously. I started watching YouTube videos um, on health and exercise to change that, especially during COVID. I really started to look more into that because I wanted to make a change. And 8 years later, I'm talking to you all about how exercise and weightlifting specifically can change your life. So I guess my goal today is not to convince you to start lifting heavy weights. Um, Instead, it's actually to show you how you can make uh, how small, consistent habits can support your body and mind, and in ways that show up like in everyday life. So, like I just said a minute ago, we're going to talk about four main ideas. First, we're going to talk about how lifting weights can improve your posture. Then, we're going to talk about how it can boost confidence. Then, we're going to look at how it affects your day to day life, and then longevity for healthy aging. And so, then, yeah, let's move on. So, let's talk a bit about posture. Posture is kind of a big deal, especially in today's world where we're all sitting a lot. I mean, most of us spend most of the day sitting, which our bodies really aren't designed to do that. Um, that's really whether we're sitting at a desk at work or at home, um, or driving on your commute to work or wherever it is that you're going, where we're sitting. And in this seated position, that's kind of unnatural for humans. This kind of leads to weak glutes and upper back muscles, and also tight hips and like your chest and shoulder girdle area. And over time, this combination of tight glutes, tight upper back and chest, this kind of leads to your shoulders to be more rounded and your head to lean more forward. And this position really leaves us feeling stiff and uncomfortable, and it can also kind of lead you to feel low on your energy. Um, and a lot of these postural issues that we have are that we deal with are just like imbalances created by our modern life, our very seated, sedentary life. And so my biggest grievance today is the chair. I think it has ruined my back and probably ruined yours too. As I've gotten older, my schooling has become more and more each year, geared towards seated and facing a screen. I just remember when I started middle school and high school, that we moved around more. I remember there being like activities in class that had us standing and moving in the room, or I remember, walking to different classes in high school, and we had, just a few minutes to get there, but we had to get there. It wasn't just online. And the same thing like in college. A good quarter of my classes have been online or completely asynchronous, meaning I could just lie in bed and do it at home. Um, and that might be efficient, it might be convenient, save me some time, save me gas money. I don't think it's beneficial in the long run. It's allowed me to sit more, which, you know, pro and a con, but and sit in a chair for longer durations, more often for longer amounts of time. And um, I think I'm starting to see some of the repercussions of doing that. And so let's kind of dive in a little bit more about how we can remedy this. So, strength can definitely create support for your posture here. Strength training can help a lot with this because it strengthens the muscles that actually hold us upright. So a lot of movements in the gym, like doing rows for your back, deadlifts. These are great back building exercises, um, and along with that, there are also compound movements which are good for like total body, um, like effectiveness, more or less. Um, but simple core exercises, like doing a plank or sit ups, help with building that support and foundation for the spine. And this actually can help reverse the rounding of the shoulder and the tightening of the chest. And it can allow you to sit in a more relaxed position that won't be such a detriment to your spinal health and posture. I was doing some research for this presentation, and I found a study from the from the uh, British Musculoskeletal Disorders page that found that strength training is one of the most effective ways, actually, to reduce postural discomfort, especially in people who sit for long periods. So, when those stabilizing muscles are getting stronger, people have noticed in that study that they stand taller. They sit with better posture. They feel less stiff and they can actually move more comfortably throughout their day. And so my best recommendation from me personally is for everyone to build up your back and core strength. I really recommend doing rows in the gym, pull-ups. I recommend doing core strength. So like I kind of said earlier, do work on the sit-ups, work on crunches and planks. Do some leg lifts. Even stuff you can do kind of at home. These are all things that you could do at home, even just with simple objects, and um, and I also recommend to supplement these exercises with more like ergonomic chairs and armrests and different mouse devices, things that are going to put you in a better, more well, better position for your back and posture. And so on top of these chairs and things, you could even utilize something like a standing desk, so you're not sitting 100% of the day. Kind of what I've been saying is pointing the finger at sitting and making that the bad guy. And, to instead of just getting an ergonomic chair, you could also just avoid sitting by standing for some of the time. Um, Movement in general is the key to overall health. So while you're standing, you could actually just go ahead and take like a small walk, take multiple small walks throughout the day. Maybe you get a smaller water bottle, so that way you have to get up to fill it more. Um, or you can get up and stretch and walk over to your friend at work and say hello. It's just like, just an idea. So moving on a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about why weightlifting and strength training in general can actually help boost your confidence. So one of the best thing about lifting weights in strength training, like I just said, is building confidence in a natural way. I mean, this is the best thing you can do for yourself by yourself. You can see and feel your progress, whether it's lifting a little more weight each time or doing an exercise that felt challenging before, but now it's something that's quite manageable. These small wins kind of add up and they build momentum. And another thing I found was there was a meta-analysis in a sports medicine journal that found that lifting consistently improves your self-esteem and self-efficacy, which basically means that you feel better about yourself and you feel more capable and more sure of what you're doing. Even outside of the gym, actually, people notice they feel more confident at work. They feel more confident in just daily situations simply because they feel stronger. I really wanted to include this because, like I said at the beginning, I struggled a little bit with self-image in high school, and weightlifting helped me a lot with that. I was embarrassed. Um, I was embarrassed. I was not sure, not exactly of what other people thought of me, maybe a little bit, but mostly about how I viewed myself. I saw myself and I didn't like what I was seeing. And when I started to exercise more and lift weights at the gym, I felt stronger. My clothes fit me better. I felt more confident in the way I carried myself, and that feeling has stayed with me for the whole journey, even 8 years later, being in college and going to graduate soon. Yeah, so it really boosts confidence. It really does. Um, Moving on to like everyday life, weightlifting is immensely helpful. I mean, I have here just on my slide that groceries feel lighter, climbing stairs feels easier. You reduce your risk for injury. You have better balance, especially working on core exercises. This is very true. So, to talk a little bit more about that, strength shows up in little things. It's not just, how much can I bench press? I curl the 100-pound dumbbells. No, that doesn't really matter. It shows up day to day life. It shows up when you're carrying the groceries. It shows up when you're getting up from the floor. If you've fallen or if you're just seated on the floor, maybe you're playing with your kid, or something like that, helping the dog or whatever it may be. Um, it really helps with that stuff. Moving furniture, all of these tasks are easier when your muscles are stronger. Strength training improves your balance and improves your stability, your movement control, which means and little, fewer strains and fewer movements where something like tweaks the wrong way. I'm sure you've, gone over to pick up a pencil off the ground and you're like, oh no, my back. It's happened to me many times, and strength training only helps that. Um, a review that I saw in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity found that lifting helps people move more confidently and efficiently, regardless of their age. The goal is not necessarily to lift heavy weights like I was just describing, with that bench press and dumbbell example, but rather the goal is to build a body that supports your life. So another anecdote I kind of want to slide in here is a bit more about my past to truly emphasize the importance of weightlifting for your daily life. I want to talk about some of the jobs I've had in the past almost 10 years. I mean, I'm 22 years old and I've been working since I was kind of young, so I've had a lot of different jobs. But I've worked primarily as a busboy and a server at a restaurant. And let me tell you, carrying heavy plates and balancing wine glasses on a tray is no easy feat. In fact, I've actually dropped many trays and many plates, but I would have dropped even more if I didn't train my strength and balance. So many compound movements such as squats, push-ups, rows, deadlifts, lunges. These are all amazing for building total body strength and total body balance. It's going to help with those tasks. Another job I worked rather recently that really tested my limits was as a mover for a moving company. That job had me moving furniture up and down stairs and in and out of trucks for 6 to 8 hours at a time. It was definitely the most exhausting job I've had to date, but it would have been impossible without my weightlifting background. And all of this together has uh, helped me decorate and rearrange my apartment with less discomfort and a reduced risk for injury. Not to say that everyone should be a mover for a moving company, because I think doing that long term would be more detrimental than weightlifting itself. But just as an example to say that it helped me with that. Um, and so moving on from how it can help you every day, resistance training, so weightlifting, strength training, this stuff actually helps with longevity. Um, all of us, or at least most of us, I would assume, hope to live to be very old. And to be honest, we are going to need to be strong to do that. Um, Strength training is possibly the strongest predictor of healthy aging. Muscle mass supports your metabolism. It helps keep your bones strong. It can, reduce the risk and reduce the effect of osteoporosis, which is, the breakdown of muscle. I'm sorry, of bone density, primarily in women, but it can affect everyone. Um, and it can also help regulate your blood sugar and protect your joints, just to name a few things. A study published in the British Medical Journal found that even a small amount of weekly strength training was linked to better long-term health outcomes and lower mortality risk than ditching regular exercise overall, each week. So another study that I found in the American Journal of Medicine, so different than the British Journal, showed that people with more muscle tend to actually stay independent longer as they age. If you keep your strength, you can keep your freedom, at least most of it. This is relevant to everyone. Another position I worked as was actually a caregiver in like a retirement home. Almost every single person there was dependent on someone to do everything. They needed help to change, to be fed, to be put to bed, and it was really hard for me to watch that and have to help these people with that. But it acted as a very strong reality check for me, and I subconsciously made a deal with myself to not end up being totally dependent on someone. And of course, I can't see the future. I can't predict what events are going to occur in my life, but I'm going to try my hardest um, to not end up that way. I'm sure you've heard the saying, if you fail to prepare, then you prepare to fail. And I don't want to be dependent in my life, so I'm going to prepare. Um, in fact, most of my classes at CSU, or at least program planning classes, have had sections where talking about working with older populations. And I'm telling you this for two reasons. First is to show you that um, older populations can exercise and they should, but also is that you should start preparing now. I wanted to include a little bit of a reflection here. I've thrown a lot of information at you just now, and I want to ask you a question for you to think a little bit for yourself here. So, what is one area of your health that you want to maintain or improve as you age, and how do you want to accomplish that? I'm gonna let that sink in for just a second here before we move on. Okay, so getting started really isn't all that difficult. It may seem daunting, but strength training doesn't need to be complicated or intense. In fact, two short sessions per week is enough to see very real results and benefits of like weightlifting. Um, you can start, just with light weights or even with body weight is a great way to do it. I know a lot of people like to mix. They do like a mixed strategy where one day a week will be weights and another day will be body weight, or more days than that too. It's all relevant. And so like simple movements like squats, rows, lunges, and presses, like a good overhead press, they go a long way when you do them consistently. So, what matters most with these exercises, simple or complex, is actually showing up for yourself and allowing your body to gradually get stronger. This is not a black and white, start on Monday and Tuesday you're 10 times stronger. It's a slow process, you know. Like I said, I've been lifting for a long time, and this is a very slow curve. Um, and so the biggest takeaways here are to be consistent, keep it simple, and start out slow and easy. You don't want to get hurt on day one. And another important thing I'd actually like to add is to find an exercise that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to want to do it and you probably won't show up. Um, for example, I don't like to run, so I choose other forms of exercise to get my heart rate up. Sometimes I bike, sometimes I do like the Stairmaster. If you don't like squatting, find an alternative. Some ideas are like lunges, um, leg presses if you're at the gym, or step ups. If you have stairs in your house, you could do step ups, or most gyms have like a place to do, um, like they have these boxes and you can do step ups on them with or without a weight. Um, and basically, there are so many exercises, and I feel like they keep coming up with new ones. And I always hear about an exercise, and I have to look it up because I've never heard of that one before. And all that is to say that the best resource that you have is the internet. When I started my weightlifting journey, I relied heavily on YouTube videos and on online forums. Almost everything you can find is a good place to start. You just have to look out for the fluff information that's people are just trying to get views on and stuff like that. Um, and so why does lifting matter? Well, I hope that you've gotten something out of what I've said for the few last little while here, but um, just on the screen here you can see a few main things that I think are important. So how you feel, or it supports how you feel, it supports how you move day to day in your day to day life, and it supports how you age. And the best thing you can do is start with a small step, which is just starting. The hardest thing to do is to get started. And once you can do that, that gets the ball rolling. And so just ride that. So to wrap everything up, weightlifting is one of the most effective things you could do for your health. It improves your posture, it improves or it boosts your confidence. It makes daily tasks easier, and it supports your long-term longevity and independence. It's not all about looking a certain way or lifting heavy weights. I mean, maybe for some of you it can be, but that's not what it's all about. It's about building a body that supports your life. Um, it's yeah, that supports your life, your work, and your overall well-being. I really hope this presentation has inspired you to think about strength training in a way that feels achievable and approachable. I have a flyer here uh, that accompanies this presentation with some useful information I think is good to take home with you, as well as a QR code on there that actually takes you to the Mayo Clinic's top 10 tips for weight training to supplement the information I've given you today. Thank you for watching.